A very good day to you all, and welcome to lecture number 4 of Cricket South Africa's Level 2 umpiring course, presented by Western Province Cricket Umpires Association. My name is Tom Mokorosi, and as usual, my batting partner for today's lecture is Abdullah Steenkamp. The format of today's lecture will be me taking you through laws 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, and 31. Then Abdullah will take us through the modes of dismissals, which are laws 32 through to law 40. As usual, while we're presenting, you're welcome to type your questions into the chat box, and we will deal with the answers to those questions after the presentation. During our Q&A, when we've dealt with all the questions and comments in the chat box, we will also address any hands up that are in the meeting room. We will allow you to unmute your microphone and ask your question live. On display currently are the meeting protocols for this and every other meeting. I'm sure you are all well acquainted with them now. So let's move on to the content for today's lecture. And we start with Law 25, batters, innings, and runners. Now, a few of you might be surprised to see that in the law book, we still refer to runners. In most international playing conditions around the world, runners are no longer allowed. However, in most veterans leagues around the world, runners are allowed. And yes, the law still makes provision for runners in Law 25. So we're going to look at a couple of subsections in the Law 25. The first one is the restriction on a batter commencing an innings. We spoke on Monday about a fielder going off the field if it is not an external blow and if it is not for a wholly acceptable reason other than injury or illness. Then when that fielder comes back onto the field of play, they need to be on the field of play for the amount of time that they were off the field of play before they can bowl again. This limitation also applies to batters. So if a fielder has been off the field of play during his or her team's bowling innings, and let's say the last 30 minutes of the innings, the opening batter for side B went off the field while side A was batting because of a hamstring strain. Law 25.3 tells us that because that batter was off the field for 30 minutes during his or her fielding side's fielding innings, he or she will not be allowed to bat up until 30 minutes into the innings of his or her batting team side batting. So that means that that opening batter cannot open the innings for the side B. He or she will have to wait until 30 minutes have elapsed, and then only can he or she bat. The law also has a clause that allows that batter to bat if his or her side has lost 5 wickets. So if before that 30 minutes has elapsed, even though the penalty time has not been served, it's fine. Law allows the batter to bat in position number 7, which is when 5 wickets have fallen in his or her side's batting lineup. So remember, penalty time does not go away. It carries over into the following innings of a match and also into subsequent day. In the event of an unscheduled stoppage, the stoppage time after the batter notifies an umpire in person that he or she is able to participate shall count as penalty time served. So let's imagine that a fielder is off the field during his or her side's fielding innings, and they're off for 20 minutes, and then it starts to rain. And then in the rain interruption or during the rain interruption, that fielder now finally feels fit. They go and declare themselves fit to the umpires. And from the moment that they declare themselves fit, then we use that time to reduce the number of minutes that he or she has to serve penalty time. So if the rain break continued for another 10 minutes after that player had declared himself or herself fit, then we reduce that 20 minutes down to 10 minutes that they need to wait when play resumes. And if it's now his or her side batting, that batter would need to wait 10 minutes before they can bat again, or until 5 wickets are down, whichever comes first. Can the striker hit the ball from anywhere on the field of play? No, law restricts how far the striker can go to play a shot. Law tells us that the striker has a right to play the ball or to make a legitimate second strike without interference from the wicket keeper. And however, the striker may only attempt to play the ball if some of his or her bat or person, whether grounded or raised, remains within the pitch. Remember, the pitch is 3.05 meters wide. So if a delivery is bowled quite wide and maybe lands off the pitch, the umpire would call and signal no ball for the ball landing off the pitch. And then should no part of the striker's bat or person remain within the pitch whilst the striker is playing the ball or attempting to play the ball, either umpire shall call and signal dead ball. So if the ball is bowled off the pitch, the bowlers and umpire would call no ball. And if the striker goes off the pitch to try and play that ball, then the strikers and umpire would immediately call and signal dead ball. That is to disallow the striker from playing a shot while he or she is no longer on any part of the pitch. Law number 26 is practice on the field. Are we allowed to practice on the pitch or the rest of the square? Law tells us that there shall not be any practice on the pitch at any time on any day of the match. So that's pretty clear. No practice on the pitch at any time of any day of the match. So even in the morning before subsequent days play, yes, practice is allowed, but not on the match pitch. There shall not be any practice on the rest of the square at any time on any day of the match, except with the approval of the umpires. Quite often in international cricket and provincial cricket around the world, the ground staff prepare practice strips out wide, they will never be the strips immediately parallel to the match playing strip. So those two dark green strips to the left and to the right of the playing pitch in the graphic below, those cannot be practice pitches, but all the other pitches on the square can be made into practice pitches, and the ground staff will inform both teams, if there are practice pitches, which practice pitches they may use before the match and also during intervals. Off the square, is practice allowed on the outfield? Yes, on any day of the match, all forms of practice are allowed on the outfield. When is practice on the outfield allowed? Practice on the outfield is allowed before the start of play, after the close of play, and during the lunch and tea intervals, as well as between innings, providing that the umpires are satisfied that such practice will not cause significant deterioration in the condition of the outfield. So if there's been a lot of rain and the outfield is wet and damp and muddy in some places, then the ground staff, in fact, the umpires might decide that we are going to negatively affect what is already a fragile outfield, so they will not allow practice on the outfield. However, normally if the outfield is fit for play, then the outfield should also be fit for practice before the match and during intervals. Between the call of play and the call of time, so during play, practice shall be permitted on the outfield, providing that the following conditions are met. So only the fielders may participate in practice on the outfield during play. You cannot have a reserve fielder or a substitute coming onto the field such that 12 players are now on the field just to practice. And quite importantly, only the match ball shall be used for practice on the field during the field of play. So what we quite often find is when a new bowler is introduced into the attack or an old bowler comes back into the attack, then they have one or two practice deliveries where they bowl the ball to mid-off or to mid-on. They are not allowed to bowl the ball parallel to the pitch, and obviously they're not allowed to bowl on the pitch as practice. So they can only use the match ball to practice their delivery swing before they start the new over. Very important, as mentioned, the restriction as to where that bowling practice is allowed. It is not to take place in the area between the square and the boundary in a direction parallel to the match pitch. So only outside of the stumps, or let's say behind the stumps, at the bowler's end towards mid-off and mid-on is where they can practice their bowling too. And as umpires, we need to make sure that when they are bowling those couple of practice deliveries to mid-on or mid-off, they do not change the condition of the ball and they do not waste time. So all of these conditions have to be met when practice takes place on the outfield during the during play. So what happens if either side or the fielding side contravenes these regulations in terms of when and where they are allowed to practice? Law first tells us that all forms of practice are subject to the match ball not being changed in its condition when the bowlers are bowling practice deliveries to mid-on or mid-off. And we need to be aware that the fielding side is not wasting time with their practicing during the match. And we need to ensure that no fielder is damaging the pitch while practice takes place. If there is contravention of any of the provisions of practice on the field, the umpire shall warn the player that the practice is not permitted, inform the other umpire, and as soon as practical, both captains of the reason for this action. If the contravention is by a batter at the wicket, the umpire shall inform the other batter and each incoming batter that the warning for the team has been issued, and this warning shall apply to the entire team throughout the rest of the match, not just the innings. If during match there is another contravention by a player of that side that has been warned, the umpire shall award 5 penalty runs to the non-defaulting side. We need to inform everybody and we need to report the matter to the governing body of who is responsible for the match. Okay, so yes, teams are allowed to practice on the field before the match, during the match, and after a day's play, but they need to do so within these regulations set out by law. If they don't, then they receive a first and final team warning, and if there is any further contravention, then we award 5 penalty runs to the opposing side. Next law we're going to look at is Law 27, the wicket keeper. First thing that you notice on a wicket keeper is that they are allowed to wear protective equipment that no other fielder is allowed to wear. Of course, other fielders are allowed to wear helmets, but the wicket keeper is the only fielder permitted to wear gloves and external leg guards. If these are worn, they are to be regarded as part of his or her person for fielding of the ball. If by the wicket keeper's actions and positioning when the ball comes into play, it is apparent to the umpires that he or she will not be able to carry out the normal duties of a wicket keeper, he or she shall forfeit the right to wear the gloves as well as the external leg guards, and also the right to be recognized as a wicket keeper in terms of taking catches with gloves and affecting stumpings. And because there will now be a normal fielder, they will count as a fielder on the leg side if they are standing on the leg side of the stumps, and of course they're not allowed to encroach on the pitch. I'll give you an example of when a wicketkeeper was no longer in their position and had to take off his pads and gloves. Many years ago, I umpired in a six-a-side tournament, and in the last over of the second innings of the match, the batting side was chasing 30 runs to win off 6 deliveries. So knowing that ones and twos and even boundary fours were not going to be enough for the batting side to win, the wicketkeeper decided that he would go and leave his position behind the stumps and go all the way to the boundary behind the stumps. Now, yes, when a fast bowler is bowling, then the wicketkeeper doesn't stand up to the stumps, but there is no fast bowler in the world that is fast enough to require the wicketkeeper to stand on the boundary behind the stumps. So for us as umpires, we determined that he was no longer in a wicket-keeper's position, so he needed to take his pads off and to take his wicket-keeping gloves off, which he did. If he had not taken his wicket-keeping gloves off and his wicket-keeping pads off, and the ball had gone to him and he had made contact with the ball with the gloves, or the ball had hit his pads, that would have been deemed illegal fielding, and we would have had to award 5 penalty runs to the batting side. So that was, for me, this particular law in action, live in a cricket match. Where does the wicketkeeper need to stand? The wicketkeeper shall remain wholly behind the wicket at the striker's end. And when the law mentions wholly behind, it doesn't mean that they need to be directly behind the stumps. They can stand half a meter outside of the off stump or a meter down leg side, because if the bowler is planning to bowl that direction, that's perfectly legal for the wicketkeeper to stand not directly behind middle stump. What the law means when they say wholly behind, they just mean all of their body and gloves and helmet and cap, all of their person and equipment needs to be behind the line of the stumps. So not in front or not parallel with the line of the stumps. And this needs to be from the moment the ball comes into play, when the bowler starts his or her run up, until the ball that is delivered by the bowler does one of 3 things: either touches the bat or person of the striker, or the ball passes the wicket at the striker's end, or the striker attempts a run. So until any of those 3 things happen, the wicketkeeper must stay behind the line of the stumps at the striker's end. In the event of the wicketkeeper contravening this law, the striker's end umpire shall call and signal no ball as soon as applicable after the delivery of the ball. Remember that we can never call no ball until the ball is delivered. So wait until the ball is delivered. If you see that at any time from the moment that the bowler ran up, that the wicketkeeper, either his or her gloves or helmet or feet or any part of the body was in front of the line of the stumps at the striker's end, striker's end umpire is in the best position to call and signal no ball. Moving to law 28, the fielder. And here we will have 2 quiz questions. So please listen to the law carefully, and we can watch the scenarios to apply the law in slides to come. Law tells us that a fielder may field the ball with any part of his or her person. However, he or she will be deemed to have fielded the ball illegally if, while the ball is in play, that fielder willfully uses anything other than part of his person to field the ball. Okay, so if you've got a cap as a fielder, you're not allowed to take your cap off and try and when not worn. A fielder is not allowed to extend his or her clothing and use this to field the ball. So you can't stretch your t-shirt and let the ball land in that little hoop that you've made. And it is particularly described, it's specifically described in point number 3. A fielder is not allowed to discard a piece of clothing, equipment, or any other object which subsequently makes contact with the ball. Okay, so all of your clothing or equipment as a fielder needs to be worn in its designated place on the body. If it is not worn, if it has been taken off and the ball makes contact with that piece of clothing or equipment that has been discarded, that would be deemed illegal fielding. Very importantly, it is not considered illegal fielding if the ball in play makes contact with a piece of clothing, equipment, or any other object which has accidentally fallen off from the person of a fielder. Okay, so I'll give you 2 examples. One is a willful discarding, and the other one is a accidental blowing off of a cap. So imagine a fielder is chasing the ball and he or she is running so fast that their cap is blown off by the wind. And the fielder gets to the ball, picks it up, throws the ball in, and the ball bounces on the cap that was blown off the fielder's head. That will not be considered illegal fielding. Why? Because the cap was blown off accidentally. Scenario number 2, if that same fielder is running after a ball and some fielders feel like they run faster with their cap off, so the fielder removes the cap, throws it on the ground and carries on running, slides, collects the ball, stands up, throws the ball. If that ball hits the cap that was willfully discarded by the fielder, then that will be deemed illegal fielding. And we will see on the next slide what the penalty is for illegal fielding. It isn't on the slide, so I will talk you through it. The ball automatically becomes dead when there's an instant of illegal fielding. Because not all players know this law, if you do identify illegal fielding, good umpiring practice is to call and signal dead ball. The runs that were completed before the instant of illegal fielding will count, as well as the run in progress if the batters had crossed before the instant of illegal fielding. We will award 5 penalty runs to the batting side, and that ball will need to be re-bowled. It is no longer a legal delivery in the over. Okay, so illegal fielding will cost your side 5 penalty runs, and the ball will need to be re-bowled. and runs completed, as well as the run in progress, if the batters had crossed at the instant of the illegal fielding, will also count. So now we've learned the law. Let us apply it to this scenario. Question here is this illegal fielding? Are we going to award 5 penalty runs, or are we going to let play continue because the cap left the fielder's head accidentally? After I play the video, please type into the chat box your answer to the quiz question. And it is quiz question 27.1. Okay, so type 27.1 and then 5 penalty runs, or 27.1 play on. Okay, let's have a look at the scenario.
Better. Maybe he's the man for the finals. Up in the air, he's not got all of it. Mid-off tries to get round, it plugs a little bit, and whoa. If that hits his cap, is that 5? Kieswetter looking at the square leg umpire. Michael Atherton says he slept with the rule book once. That flicks his cap, is that 5?
Don't know whether it did. One man would know, I suppose.
Yeah. So it's not deliberate. Fine. It's over. Yeah. No. Not deliberate. Yeah.
Not deliberate. That's what Rob Bailey has just said. So there's the answer. It's not deliberate. It's not 5. Did it hit the cap? Oh, it did. It did.
Not deliberate, the answer.
Okay, so please type into the chat box 27.1 5 penalty runs, or 27.1 play on. Now let's look at protective helmets belonging to the fielding side placed behind the wicket keeper. Law tells us that protective helmets, when not in use by fielders, should be placed on the ground behind the wicket keeper and in line with both set of stumps, so the possibility of the ball hitting those helmets behind the wicket keeper is limited. If, however, a protective helmet belonging to the fielding side is on the ground and the ball, while in play, strikes it, the ball will automatically become dead. Here again, most players do know this law, but not all the players on the field will see the ball hitting the helmet behind the wicket keeper. So good umpiring practice is for whichever umpire sees the ball hitting the helmet behind the wicketkeeper, call and signal dead ball, so everybody else knows that nothing else can take place. We award 5 penalty runs to the batting side because those helmets were discarded and placed there willfully by the fielding side. They didn't end up there accidentally. They didn't fall off a player's head. Any runs completed by the batters before the ball strikes the protective helmet shall be scored together with the run in progress if the batters had crossed at the instant that the ball hit the helmet. So now let's look at another scenario, and this is going to be quiz question 27.2. It is taken from a test match between New Zealand and Pakistan a couple of years ago. Watch carefully. The ball goes past Kane Williamson, the striker, goes past the wicketkeeper, and it hits the helmet and then goes on to the roll to the boundary. So the question here is, how many runs do New Zealand score off this delivery? Okay, pretty simple. Quiz question 27.2. How many runs do New Zealand score off this delivery?
I think that's hit the helmet. I think this will be automatic 5, will it? Just check. I think it is 5.
That's the last thing you want. There you go, hitting right on the top of the lid.
Yep. Do we have to stop for a concussion protocol?
Okay, so quiz question 27.2. Please type into the chat box. How many runs are awarded to New Zealand in this scenario? The ball did travel all the way to the boundary after hitting the helmet. How many runs are added to New Zealand's score for this particular delivery? We will go through the quiz questions after Abdullah has presented laws 32 to 40. Movement by fielders. Any movement by any fielder, excluding the wicket keeper, after the ball comes into play and before the ball reaches the striker is unfair, except for the law does allow for some movement by fielders as the bowler is running in. We all, growing up playing cricket, were advised to walk in with the bowler. So is that allowed? Yes, it is allowed. Firstly, what's allowed? Minor adjustments to stance or position in relation to the striker's wicket. So quite often, fielders who are in catching positions, as the bowler is running in and about to bowl the ball, they crouch to get ready for a potential catch coming their way. So that would be an example of a minor adjustment to the stance. What is also allowed is movement by any fielder other than a close fielder towards the striker or the striker's wicket that does not significantly alter the position of the fielder. So this is an example of walking in with the bowler. Very important, close catching fielders are not allowed to walk in with the bowler. And also those who are allowed to walk in with the bowler, you cannot change your position. For example, you cannot run all the way from long off to mid off while the bowler is running up, because that is a change in position. Once the ball is bowled, then fielders are allowed movement in response to the stroke that the striker is playing, or that his or her actions suggest that he or she intends to play. So you often see it when batters shape to play a lap sweep. The wicketkeeper will start moving down leg side. Even the first slip fielder from his position on the offside will start running down leg side to anticipate a catch or to try and field that ball. If there is unfair movement, which is not allowed as on the slide, either umpire shall call and signal dead ball, inform the other umpire of the reason for doing so, and award 5 penalty runs to the batting side. Okay? Illegal movement by fielders is punishable by 5 penalty runs towards the batting side. Law 29, the wicket is broken. Let's watch an animation video to learn more about this law.
The wicket is down. The wicket is put down when one or both bails are removed from the top of the stumps, or a stump is struck out of the ground. The situation can be brought about in the following ways: by the ball, by the batsman's bat, by the batsman's bat if he or she lets go of it, or even by some flying part of a bat if it breaks, by the batsman's clothing or body, or some part of his or her equipment falling off, by a fielder with his or her hand or arm, providing the same hand is holding the ball. If the bail merely bounces and comes to rest back on the stumps, then that is not out. The wicket is down at the precise moment that both ends of either bail are removed from the stumps. Right about now. Should you have further questions on this tricky subject, such as how to put the wicket down when one or both bails have already been removed, head over to Law 29 in MCC's The Laws of Cricket.
Just to summarize what we have just watched, the wicket is broken fairly if either bail is completely removed from the top of the stumps, or a stump is struck out of the ground, or by any part of, or by the ball, or by the striker's bat if held, or by any part of the bat that he or she is holding. For instance, if a bat breaks in half and the one half stays in the hands of the striker and the other half goes on to hit the stumps, then that would be the wicket fairly put down. The wicket is fairly put down by the striker's bat, not in hand, or by any part of the bat that becomes detached, as I've just described. The wicket can also be put down by the striker's person or by any part of his or her clothing or equipment becoming detached from his or her person. Some batters bat with a towel tucked behind their back, and if that flies out and hits the stumps or just removes the bail, then that is also a fair putting down of the wicket or breaking the wicket. Of course, a fielder may break the wicket with his or her hand or arm, providing that the ball is held in the hand or hands used to break the wicket. A fielder can also take a ball and the stump, put them together, and then uproot the stump. If one bail is off, it shall be sufficient for the purpose of breaking the wicket to remove the remaining bail, or to strike or pull any of the three stumps out of the ground. Here is a correct uprooting of a stump. You'll see that the ball is making contact with the stump when the stump is uprooted. This is an incorrect uprooting of the stump because the ball is not in contact with the stump when it is uprooted. The penultimate law that I'm going through before I hand over to Abdullah is a batter out of his or her ground. Let's watch an animation video to teach us more about this law.
Batsman out of his or her ground. When a batsman is out of his or her ground, he or she risks being stumped or run out. So when is a batsman out of his or her ground? According to Law 30, a batsman shall be considered to be out of his or her ground unless the bat he or she is holding or some part of the batsman's person is grounded behind the popping crease at that end. Here, for example, the bat is on the crease marking, but not behind it, which means the batsman is most definitely out. But would the batsman be out now? Both the bat and the batsman are over the line, but neither the bat nor any part of the batsman's person is grounded, i.e. in contact with the ground. So, yes, that's out again. This being cricket, there is an exception to this part of the law. If a batsman, who must be running or diving, has already made his or her ground, either with the bat or any part of the body, but subsequently loses contact with the ground while continuing his or her forward momentum as the wicket is put down, he or she will be not out. Next question, and this can be a bit of a headache. What constitutes each batsman's ground? Well, when one batsman is in a ground, i.e. grounded behind a popping crease, then the ground at the other end belongs to the other batsman. If neither is in his or her ground, for example when they are both running between wickets or even stationary, each ground belongs to the batsman who is nearest to it. If both batsmen are level, then where they were before drawing level is the deciding factor. Of course, this being cricket, there are further delightful complications, such as two batsmen in the same ground, or three when you have a striker with a runner. But never fear, all mental anguish will clear with a little quiet meditation and reference to Law 30 in the Blue Book.
Okay. Last law that I'm taking you through before handing over to Abdullah is Law 31, appeals. Timing of appeals is what we're going to deal with today. Up until when is an appeal valid? Law tells us that for an appeal to be valid, it must be made before the bowler begins his or her run-up, or if the bowler does not have a run-up, before the bowler starts his or her bowling action for the next delivery, and before time has been called. Very important, the call of over does not invalidate an appeal made prior to the start of the following over, provided that time has not been called. So that means that even after the over, if a fine leg fielder comes to start bowling the next over and gives his or her cap to the umpire, that fine leg fielder who is now about to start the next over can still ask, umps, I'm quite sure I heard a little nick for that last delivery of that previous over. How was that? There was no appeal previously. I'm appealing now. How was that? Obviously, that appeal needs to be directed to the umpire who is now at the striker's end. But in terms of law, that appeal is still valid. It will only, the window period for the appeal will only close once that new bowler for the new over starts his or her run-up for the first delivery of the next over. Just practically, rather, if an appeal comes a minute after the delivery has ended, rather just say not out. You don't want to cause a scene by going back to an event a minute earlier and giving a batter out. What do players have to say when they appeal? Any variant of the words "how was that" is acceptable. Some and most players just scream "ah!" and we as umpires know that that is an appeal. So let's not be too technical about what an appeal should sound like. As long as a question is directed to you, we know we need to answer an appeal. That is my lot for now. I'll get back after Abdullah has presented Laws 32 to 40 with the answers to the quiz questions. Abdullah, over to you.
Thank you so much, Tom. Good evening to you, and good evening to the rest of the attendees. So kicking off with bowled. So there are 9 modes of dismissals. I'm going to go through all of them. And how is the striker out bowled? If the wicket is put down by the ball, and it shouldn't be a no ball, and the ball goes against the stumps and put the wicket down. Even if the ball first touches the striker's bat or person, as long as the ball goes against the stumps and put the wicket down, batter is out bowled. However, striker will not be out bowled if before the ball goes against the wicket, the ball has been in contact with an umpire or any other player. So when it comes to the 9 modes of dismissals, who is boss? Bowled is always boss. Bowled number 1. You can have at times where a batter for single delivery is out on more than one mode of dismissal. And if bowled is one of them, bowled will supersede any other dismissal. Bowled is boss. Second mode of dismissal is the court law. Let's first look at an animation video, and then we're going to look at 2 actual catches that happened. Let's start with the animation video.
Fair catch. A catch shall be considered fair if the ball is held in a fielder's hand, hugged to the body of the catcher, or accidentally lodges in his or her clothing, helmet, or protective equipment. But of course, this being cricket, it isn't always that simple. If a fielder deliberately uses an item of clothing to try to catch the ball, it is not out, and 5 penalty runs are awarded to the batting side. However, the ball can be caught after it has deflected off the other batsman, an umpire, another fielder, including off a helmet being worn, or even if it lodges in a fielder's helmet. Perhaps the main criterion for a catch to be considered fair is that the ball must not touch the ground before being caught. Here, for example, the ball does not touch the ground even though the hand holding it does so in effecting the catch. This is a fair catch. And then there is the question of catches near the boundary. This is such an interesting subject that we've given it a film all of its own. To catch up on everything to do with catching, simply refer to Law 33 in the Blue Book.
So when it comes to a fielder making a catch, so when does the catch start and when does it end? So let's look at what the law tells us. So it starts from the moment the ball comes into contact with the fielder's person. And when is the catch completed? 2 conditions needs to be met. Catch is only completed once the fielder has control or complete control over both the ball and his or her movement. So both conditions needs to be met for the catch to be completed. So I'm going to play you a video, and in the chat box you can put down question or Q33.3. So you, the TV umpire, and you need to make this decision. It was sent up to you. You need to make the decision whether the striker is out caught or are you going to go not out? So let's have a look at the video. I'm playing it without sound because I don't want you to hear what the commentators say. I want you, the TV umpire, to make this call and apply the law in making this call. So yeah, we're happy to fair delivery. So there the fielder, he first makes contact with the fielder's person. Now you need to decide. Did the fielder have complete control over both the ball and his movement? I'll play it to you again. Not the whole video, just the final part, where you need to look at whether there's complete control over ball and movement. So in the chat box, quiz 33.3, out or not out? Secondly, let's look at a catch, an incident that happened in an Ashes Test match a few years ago. We're first going to look at the incident. We'll listen to what the commentators have to say, and then we're going to listen to Marais Erasmus, who was the TV umpire for this particular Test match, and Marais explaining how he arrived at his decision for this particular catch. Okay, let's have a look.
I want your opinion on that catch now, Ricky. You've had ages to digest it as you've meandered across the outfield. What do you reckon?
And the last 10 minutes in the commentary box, we've been talking about it. I'm worried about the inconsistencies of all of this. I mean, I can sit back and argue that Steve Smith wasn't in control of his movements either in the first innings. His was deemed to have his fingers underneath the ball. Mitchell Starc took the catch, 3 or 4 feet from the ground. So at some stage his fingers were underneath the ball. I'm sure we'll get more. We'll talk about it forever. We'll get more clarification, I'm sure, overnight by the time we've spoken to the umpires. But, I mean, if you look at that, I know they're talking about the movement not being completed, but that's been held longer than any slips catch, any keeper's catch that's ever been taken in the history of the game. But they catch it and throw it up straight away, and sometimes you are still moving when you've done that. So I could argue that he's controlled that ball as long, if not longer, than most catches that are actually taken in the game.
I suppose, and as I say to Strauss, I haven't been able to ask Marais Erasmus specifically about this, but if he's arguing that he's not in control of his movements, it's because he's using his the ball to steady himself a wee bit.
Yeah, I think that's what he'll come back to. But
the inconsistency
was Steve Smith doing the same? I mean, that's what I don't. And I think what you'll see with a lot of these is you'll see different umpires interpret that in a different way, I reckon.
Right. We'll have a look at the Steve Smith catch then, because you can go through what you mean about having his fingers on the ball and then his movement after.
Yeah, well, I spoke to you this night. That he clearly catches that a long way above the ground. And what he said then, if you look at the way his fingers were underneath the ball, on the bottom side of the ball. The ball then, from what angles that I saw, the ball actually touched the ground, although his fingers were underneath it. As he came back up, the ball came out of his hand. So is he actually in control of the ball? I think Mitchell Starc was in control of the ball longer than what Steve Smith was with his.
The question I have, I mean, it's sloppy from Mitchell Starc, isn't it? I think the catch was good, but you don't let the ball just go along the ground like that. He could have easily sort of rolled his body over and made sure the ball did not touch the ground. So it was a 100%. Sloppy bit of fielding in the end.
Yeah, cannot argue with that at all.
Okay, let's listen to Marais Erasmus.
Exactly what you saw in the third umpire's chair, and just interpret the law for us as you, with your thinking process around the catch.
Yeah, the law is specific, and it says that the fielder has to have control of his body and movement. In that particular case, he was still moving and he put the ball on the ground. Now, if you take that example and say he was sliding towards the boundary, if he slid into the boundary, we would have deemed it either 4 or 6, depending on if the ball touched the ground before. So there's no difference in our interpretation for the catch.
So the key thing is that he only then has control of his body when the movement has stopped, and by that stage the ball has clearly touched the ground.
Yes. It was actually quite simple because he actually put the ball on the ground quite early, and then eventually when he came to stop, it was too late.
I want your...
Okay, next mode of dismissal is hit the ball twice. Let's look at an animation video that will explain how this mode of dismissal works.
Hit the ball twice. Hit the ball twice and you're out. Unless, of course, you're defending your wicket or it was accidental, in which case you're still in. The striker is out hit the ball twice if, while the ball is in play, it strikes any part of his person or is struck by his bat, and before the ball has been touched by a fielder, he willfully strikes it again with his bat or person. The key word here is willfully. But if this had happened instead, the batsman would remain in. In other words, inadvertent double strikes don't count. The batsman is allowed to hit the ball a second time in order to guard his wicket. He can use his bat or almost any part of his body. He cannot, however, use a hand that's not holding the bat. The only time you can't use your bat to hit the ball twice to defend your wicket is when it would prevent a catch. The batsman can also hit the ball a second time in order to return it to a fielder, as long as a fielder has given him permission to do so. If you'd like to swat up on this a bit more, simply turn to Law 34 in the Blue Book, where you'll find all the nitty-gritty detail you need.
So we've just heard in the animation video where the narrator said that if you hit the ball a second time willfully, you on appeal can be given out hit the ball twice. But you are allowed to legally hit the ball a second time only to protect your wickets. That's the only time legally that you're allowed to willfully hit the ball a second time. So in an example where you play forward, and let's say you block the ball into the ground in front of you, and then the ball spins back and it's now going to go onto your stumps. Now the law allows for you to hit that ball now a second time because you're now going to protect your stumps. So now you hit the ball away from your stumps, and let's say you hit the ball so hard and it goes past the point and the batter starts to run. Will those runs be permitted if you now legally hit the ball a second time? Let's see what the law tells us. And the answer to that question is no, you are not allowed to run if you legally hit the ball a second time. But if the batters do decide to run, you don't intervene immediately as an umpire. You either wait until the ball goes over the boundary, or if it doesn't go over the boundary, you intervene when they complete the first run. So as soon as the striker, after now hitting the ball a second time to protect the wicket, they now decide to run, not knowing the law, and they run, and as soon as the striker gets to behind the popping crease at the bowler's end, and the non-striker now gets to behind the popping crease at the striker's end, as soon as that first run is completed, you now as an umpire need to intervene. And how do you intervene? You need to call and signal dead ball. So now we know those runs are not permitted. So what else must you now do as an umpire? After calling and signaling dead ball on the completion of that first run, or if the ball went over the boundary, Because the law tells us those runs are not permitted, you need to disallow that particular run, whether it's the one that they've completed or even if it goes over the boundary, those runs should be disallowed. Return batters back to their original ends. So you'll send the striker back to his or her end, and obviously the non-striker needs to come back to the bowler's end. If there was a no ball, that no ball will be applicable. And you will award any 5 penalty runs, except penalty runs under law 28.3 if you should hit the helmet that was placed behind the keeper. Next mode is hit wicket. So let's first have a look at when hit wicket starts, and we'll see later on when it ends. So there is a window period for hit wicket to happen. So if it's not happening in that window period, then the striker cannot be given out hit wicket. So let's have a look at when that window period opens. And we'll see in the next slide what happens if the striker do push the wicket down before the window period opens, but we'll get there in the next slide. But for now, let's see where hit wicket starts. So law tells us the striker can only be given out hit wicket if after the bowler has entered the delivery stride. So that is when hit wicket opens, after bowler enters the delivery stride. And then, now the bowler has entered the delivery stride, now the striker put down the wicket with either the bat or any part of the person in the following instances. Let's look at point 1. So the striker is out wicket after the bowler has entered his or her delivery stride, and the striker take any course, any action taken by the striker in preparing to receive the delivery. I'll give you an example how what point 1 means. Usually the striker, many batsmen have different trigger movements. Some have forward trigger movements. There's lots of batters that have back and across trigger movement. Some batters keep the bat in the air. Some batters keep it on the ground, and they only lift it as the ball is about to be delivered. So different strikers, different trigger movements. So law tells us after the bowler has entered the delivery stride, if the striker put that wicket down in preparing, like if the striker has a back and across movement. So if there's a back and across movement and the striker then, let's say, tramps on the stumps, bails on the floor. Or if the striker has a back lift, so as the bowler enters the delivery stride, he's about to deliver the ball, the striker in lifting the bat to prepare to receive the ball, in that lifting of the bat, now the bat puts the wicket down. So those are just 2 examples of the striker preparing to receive the delivery. And if that is the case, the law tells us striker on appeal to be given out hit wicket. That's now the first instance of our strikers out hit wicket. Secondly, striker is out hit wicket if after the striker played at the ball and the striker sets off for the first run, but there's a condition. Setting off for that first run, it needs to be immediately after playing at the ball. And the emphasis here is on the word, it needs to be immediately after playing at the ball. If it's not immediate, the striker should not be given out hit wicket. I'll give an example what I mean by immediate. So I want you to visualize the following scenario. Bowler delivers the ball, the striker hits the ball into the covers, and then immediately set off to take a single. And as the striker sets off to take a single, and this setting off was immediate, the striker's back foot slides, and it slides back onto the stumps and puts the wicket down. On appeal, striker to be given out, hit wicket. Why? The striker, after playing at the ball, in setting off for that first run, and this setting off was immediate. We'll see in a few slides' time, there is an example of Sachin Tendulkar setting off to take a run, and we'll see why Sachin was given out, because he set off immediately, but we'll get there in about 2 or 3 slides' time. I mentioned earlier it needs to be setting off immediately for that first run. So what does it mean if a striker, what needs to happen for the striker, if it's not immediate, what needs to happen? We'll get there in the next slide, but I'll give you the answer now. The word immediately is important. So if there's any delay in the striker playing at the ball and then setting off for that first run, so if there is a pause, and after the pause, now the striker sets off and then put the wicket down, because it's not immediate, the striker should not be given out, hit wicket. I'll give you an example to illustrate what I mean. Visualize, ball delivered, striker hits the ball into the covers. But it's about more or less straight to the cover fielder. But now the striker, seeing that the ball is close to the cover fielder, the first words that come out of the striker's mouth is wait, wait. Because why the striker wants to wait? To first see whether the ball goes past the cover fielder. So now the striker goes wait, wait. And now the ball goes past the cover fielder. Now the striker tells the batting partner, yes, 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 let's take a single. So now the striker, in setting off for that first run, now that back foot slides and put the wicket down. Now, yes, the fielding side will appeal. But what is your answer going to be in the second scenario? You're going to go not out. The captain is going to ask you why. You're going to tell the captain, because the law wants the striker to put down the wicket immediately in setting off for the first run. In the second scenario, the setting off for that first run was not immediate. There was a pause. The striker called out, wait, wait. So there was a pause, and only after the ball went past the cover fielder, now the striker set off for that first run, then put the wicket down. So that is the second scenario was not out, and I explain why, because it's not immediate. We'll get to, I'll elaborate further in 2 slides' time. But to be dismissed out, we hit wicket, setting off for that first run needs to be immediate. Point 3 is similar to point 2. The only difference here is in point 3, no attempt was made to play at the ball. And then let's say this batter shouldered arms, didn't touch anything, goes past the bat, goes through the keeper's legs, and now setting off immediately for that first run. Back foot slides, striker puts down the bells, there's an appeal, give the striker out, hit wicket. And lastly, the striker will be given out, hit wicket in lawfully trying to guard his or her wicket. So the ball is rolling back to the wicket. Now the striker is trying to hit the ball away from the wicket. And by trying to hit the ball away from the wicket, the striker knocks off the bells with the bat. Striker is out, hit wicket. So these are the 4 instances when the striker will be out, hit wicket. And we now know when that window period opens, when the back foot lands. I mentioned it right at the beginning, where if the striker do put the wicket down before the bowler enters the delivery stride, either umpire needs to intervene by calling and signaling dead ball. So striker can only be given out, hit wicket when the bowler enters the delivery stride. If it happens before then, dead ball. So now let's have a look at when the striker will be not out, hit wicket. And now we get to when the window period for hit wicket closes. If the striker puts the wicket down after the batter has completed any action in receiving the delivery. As soon as the shot is done, and then the striker puts the wicket down, the striker will be not out, hit wicket. Hit wicket can only happen when, as soon as that back foot lands from that moment, and that window period closes as soon as the striker is done with the shot. As soon as the striker's completed the action in playing at the shot. So you get different shots. You need to look at whatever the shot is, whether it's a cover drive, whether it's a late cut, whether it's a pull shot. So whatever that particular shot is, as soon as that shot is done, that the window period then closes, and as soon as the window period closes, if the striker should put the wicket down after that, it should be not out. Also, when striker will be not out hit wicket, if the striker, while running, and we're now not referring to the first run, the striker puts the wicket down while running, and it's not the first run and not setting off immediately for the first run, the striker will be not out hit wicket. I'll give you an example to illustrate bullet point number 2, and this actually happened to me back in my playing days, and we had player umpires in that particular game. So I hit the ball down to fine leg. It was a bit wide of fine leg, so I set off for a single. I then turned for the second, and as I was about to get to the keeper's in, I could see this is going to be tight. The fine leg picked up the ball, side the ball into the keeper. I'm just like, oh, this is going to be tight, and I put in a dive to make my ground. So as I was diving, I was sliding along the ground, and as I slid along the ground, my bat clipped the stumps and put the bails on the floor. There was a huge appeal, and I was given out hit wicket. I accepted the decision because it was obvious. I mean, my bat did put the bails down, but I and the rest of the 21 players that was on the field, we didn't know the laws back then, so we just accepted it. We didn't know that it can only be given out if you put your wicket down in setting off for that first run. So I put the wicket down coming back for my second. And the correct decision here should have been not out, because you cannot be given out hit wicket if it happens in the act of running and it's not setting off for that first run. Also, striker not to be given out hit wicket if at any time the striker is trying to avoid either being run out or being stumped. Also not out hit wicket if a striker is trying to avoid a throw at any time. Also not out hit wicket if after the bowler enters the delivery stride, the striker puts the wicket down, but for some reason the bowler decides not to deliver the ball. Striker also not to be given out hit wicket. Umpire needs to call and signal dead ball because the bowler did not deliver the ball. And lastly, the striker cannot be given out hit wicket if the ball is a no ball. So let's now apply the law. We've now seen when the window period opens, when it closes, also are setting off for that first run, and if it's immediate, the striker should be given out hit wicket. Let's have a look at a video, and this is Sachin Tendulkar many years ago. Let's look at what Sachin did, and let's apply the hit wicket law.
Single, here he goes. He puts
so there Sachin plays at it, and there he sets off immediately for that first run, and he puts the wicket down. That's why the correct decision here was Sachin was given out hit wicket, because there you can see he set off immediately for that first run and he put the wicket down. Leg before wicket. Let's look at an animation video.
leg before wicket. LBW. LBW is a little like the offside rule in football. Many people claim to know it, but how many people really do? Our handy checklist means that whether you find yourself umpiring an international test match or the kids on the beach, your reputation for fairness will remain intact. There are 5 basic criteria to consider. The batsman is out, leg before wicket, if 1. The bowler bowls a ball that isn't a no ball, unlike this poor fellow. 2. The ball, if it is not intercepted on the full, pitches in line between wicket and wicket or on the offside of the batsman's wicket. It cannot be out if the ball pitches outside the line of the leg stump. 3. The ball hits the batsman either full pitch or after pitching and before he hits it with his bat. 4. This is where it gets a bit more complicated. If the batsman was making a genuine attempt to play the ball, the point of impact must be between wicket and wicket for LBW to be an option. However, if the batsman has made no genuine attempt to play the ball, the contact must either be between wicket and wicket or outside the line of the off stump. 5. This is the crucial part. But for the interception by the batsman, the ball would have gone on to hit the stumps and dislodge the bails. Any questions? Just refer to Law 36 in the Blue Book.
So let's summarize the points that you need to consider when there is an LBW appeal. So these are the points that you need to take into account as per the laws of cricket. There are other factors that you also need to take into account, like height, traveling distance, spin. But we're going to look at the points that you need to consider as per the law. Firstly, ball should not be a no ball. If not hit on the full, the ball needs to pitch between wicket and wicket or on the offside of the wicket. Now you can see the law is clear, either between wicket and wicket or on the offside. That's where, and this is the point where we always hear pitching outside leg can never be out. This is the reason why, because the law is specific where it needs to pitch, either on the offside or between wicket and wicket. Should not touch the bat first. If at any time it touches the bat first, cannot be given out hit wicket. But if it hits the pad first and then the bat, then you can consider the LBW appeal. But if it's the bat first, never out LBW. Yes, I know they call it LBW, leg before wicket, but the law tells us it can actually hit any part of the person. Yes, I would say 99% of the time it hits the leg, but doesn't have to be. It can hit the tummy, the chest, the shoulder, the helmet. Doesn't have to only hit the leg, any part of the person. When it comes to the point of impact, and even if the point of impact is above the level of the bails, doesn't matter, it needs to be between wicket and wicket. They want the point of impact to be between wicket and wicket, and there is a but, and this but is unless the striker has made no genuine attempt to play the ball with his or her bat. Then, if there's no shot off it, now you can consider the impact to be either between wicket or wicket, or even on the offside of the wicket. Otherwise, impact should always be between wicket and wicket, unless there's no shot off it. Then you can consider, even if the ball hits out the batter outside the off, you can consider it. But you need to take the last point into account. It's a crucial point. Yes, all of these points are crucial, but the last point is very important. In your opinion, the ball would have gone on to hit the wicket. If after taking all first 5 bullet points into account and you get to bullet point number 6 and in your opinion you think, yes, I've ticked all the boxes when it came to the first 5 bullet points. Now when I got to bullet point 6, I'm happy that yes, this ball would have gone on to hit the wicket, then give the striker out LBW. Or if you get to bullet point number 6, you've ticked all 5 the first bullet points, but you get to bullet point 6 and you feel, I don't think this is going on to hit the wicket. Absolutely no issue. You then go not out. So these are the 6 points that you need to consider when there's an LBW appeal. Obstructing the field. Let's start by looking at an animation video.
Obstructing the field. A batsman is out obstructing the field if he or she willfully attempts to obstruct or distract the fielding side by word or action. Like this, for example. Thank you, Tommy. In particular, it is considered to be obstruction if, while the ball is in play and after the striker has played the ball, either batsman willfully strikes the ball with a hand not holding the bat or any other part of his or her person, or with the bat. The exception to this is when the batsman is attempting to defend his or her wicket. The batsman may do this with the bat or any part of his or her person, except with a hand not holding the bat. If the batsman uses such a hand, he or she will be out obstructing the field. The handled the ball law no longer exists, with such incidents now covered by obstructing the field instead. The obstruction has to be willful. Accidental obstruction, or obstruction caused by trying to avoid injury, does not count, and the decision on that is down to the umpire. It's worth noting that if a catch is obstructed, it is the striker who is out, even if it was the non-striker who caused the obstruction. Mind you, it's not always an easy decision. Here, the batsman deliberately crosses out of the legal running area in order to attempt to obstruct a throw. There is no other reason why the batsman should be running across the pitch. What looked an accident was, in fact, an illegal incident. To avoid any possible confusion, read Law 37 in black and white in the Blue Book.
So what happens if a ball, there's an obstruction from a ball being caught? So, firstly, if the delivery is not a no ball, it is the striker who will be out obstructing the field if there was willful or deliberate obstruction or distraction by either batter, and that willful obstruction or distraction prevented the ball from being caught. So if it's not a no ball, the striker will be given out. Even though the non-striker might be causing the obstruction from a ball being caught, we will give the striker out obstructing the field. An example, let's say it's not a no ball, the ball gets hit up in the air, the bowler sits under the ball, and the non-striker willfully bumped into the bowler, and the bowler doesn't take the catch. Fielding side will appeal. The two umpires will get together. You need to decide whether that obstruction by the non-striker was willful. And if you agree, yes, it was willful, you will now give the striker out obstructing the field. Even though it's a non-striker that caused it, but if it's not a no ball, the striker to be given out obstructing the field. Also, if the striker is trying to lawfully guide his or her wicket, but in trying to guard the wicket, that striker prevents a catch from being taken on appeal, striker to be given out obstructing the field. An example, let's say the striker plays forward, gets a inside edge, it then goes on from the inside edge onto the top of the pad and then loops up. And remember, it's a spinner bowling, so it loops up. The ball is now going to land on the stumps. The batter see this. The keeper's also there. Now the keeper wants to take the catch because there was an inside edge, and the striker hits the ball away in trying to prevent the ball going onto the stumps. So the law don't want this because, yes, the striker is trying to prevent the ball going onto the stumps, but the striker is also obstructing the keeper from taking the catch. And in that instance, we will go batter out, obstructing the field because he or she prevented a catch from being taken. In point 1, I mentioned that if it's not a no ball, it will be the striker that will be given out if there was willful obstruction or distraction by either batter. In point 3, if it is a no ball and now there's an obstruction or distraction, then the batter who actually caused the obstruction or distraction, that batter will be given out obstructing the field. So in my same scenario that I used in point 1, where the ball was hit in the air, bowler sits under it, the non-striker willfully bumps into the bowler, and the bowler doesn't take the catch. But now the difference between my first scenario and the second one is, the second one, the ball is a no ball. So now the law tells us, because it's now a no ball, we will now look at who caused the distraction, the distraction or obstruction. It was the non-striker that caused it. That's why, because of the no ball, now we will give the non-striker out, obstructing the field. When it comes to runs scored, when either batter is dismissed obstructing the field, I'll start with point 2 first. So if the obstruction or distraction prevents the striker from being out caught, no runs to be scored. Point 1. But if there is an obstructing the field and it didn't prevent a catch, any runs completed by the batters before the offence to be scored. Bowler will not get credit for obstructing the field wicket. Run out. How can either batter be out run out? If at any time while the ball is still alive, while the ball is still in play, the law wants, while that ball is alive, the batters to have some part of their person or the bat grounded behind the popping crease at their respective ends. They need to stay behind the popping crease while that ball is still alive. If they're not behind the popping crease at their respective ends and the wicket is fairly put down by any fielder, either batter to be given out, run out. Even if no ball was called, I mean, we've covered in an earlier lecture that one of the modes of how you can be dismissed of a no ball is run out. So if no ball was called, you can still be out, run out. And whether a run was attempted or not is irrelevant. You always need to stay behind the popping crease at your respective ends. You need to have your person or part of your bat while that ball is still alive. A lot of players, even back in my playing days, I always thought, no, you must attempt a run to be given out, run out. No, it's not the case. It's irrelevant whether a run is attempted or not. If that ball is still alive and you're not behind the popping crease at your end and the wicket is put down by a fielder, on appeal, you should be given out, run out. So now we've covered when either batter can be given out, run out. There are instances when the batter will not be run out. Let's have a look at those instances. Firstly, a batter made good the ground And then after making good the ground, they then subsequently left it. And the only reason why they left it was not to get injured. And after leaving it to avoid injury, now the wicket gets put down. I'll give you an example to illustrate this. Bowler delivers the ball, striker hits the ball to fine leg. And they jog through for a single. Fine leg picks up the ball. And just visualize that the non-strikers now made good the ground behind the popping crease at the striker's end. So now fine leg picks up the ball and a bullet throw comes in from the fine leg boundary. The non-striker, after making good the ground, sees this ball is coming at a notch of pace and is coming straight for my head. The non-striker now moved back to avoid injury, to avoid ball not hitting him or her. And in moving back to avoid the ball hitting the non-striker's head, the non-strikers now left the crease. Now non-strikers got nothing behind the popping crease. Now the wicketkeeper sees this, catches the ball and takes off the bails and will appeal. What will your answer be as the striker's end umpire? You will say, not out, keeper. Keeper's going to ask you, but umpire, why? He was not in his ground when I put the wicket down. And your answer will be, the non-striker initially made good the ground. You see, only left it because there was a bullet throw that came in, and they left it to avoid injury. And because they only left it to avoid injury, they get immunity from being run out. But important thing is they must make good the ground and only left it to avoid injury. You cannot give immunity to a fielder that's dozing off, that just wanted to do some gardening while the ball is still alive, or for whatever reason left the wicket while the ball is still alive. Second instance, where a batter will be not run out. The law wants any of the 11 fielders to first touch the ball, and then after one of the 11 fielders touches it, it then goes onto the wicket. Then if the batter is not behind the ground, then only either batter can be given out. If there was not a touch by any of the 11 fielders and it goes against the wicket, and either batter is not behind the popping crease at their respective ends, it will be not out. I'll give you two examples to illustrate this. Visualize the bowler delivering a ball. Striker hits it straight down the pitch. The bowler then puts out the hand to try to stop the ball. In putting out a hand, the ball actually touched the hand, and then from the hand it goes onto the stumps. And the non-striker is, let's say, half a meter outside the crease. On appeal, non-striker should be given out, run out. Why? Because the bowler's touched it. Second scenario, and this is what I want to come to, when a batter will not be out, run out. We need a touch from one of the fielders. Yes, the bowler is one of the 11 fielders. So same scenario, but this time the ball gets hit back straight past the bowler, straight back to the bowler. Bowler puts out a hand, but this time the bowler does not get a hand to it. Does not touch the hand or any part of the bowler's body, and now goes against the stumps. Put the wicket down, the ball, and the non-striker is half a meter outside the crease. They will appeal. Your answer to that is going to be not out. Bowler's going to ask you why. You're going to tell the bowler, yes, I know the non-striker was not behind the crease when the ball went against the wicket, but we need a touch of one of the fielders. You did not touch that ball. That's why my answer to the appeal is not out. So it must be one of the 11 fielders. a third scenario where ball delivered. Again, the batter hits it straight down the pitch, but this time it goes against the non-striker. Let's say it goes against the leg of the non-striker. And from the leg of the non-striker, it then ricochets and goes onto the stumps, and the ball puts the wicket down. The fielding side will appeal. What is your answer to that appeal going to be? It's going to be not out. Why? Because the law wants one of the fielders to touch the ball, and then the wicket is put down with the batter sort of their ground. In my third scenario, who touched the ball? It was not one of the fielders. It was the non-striker, which is one of the batters. And yes, it touched the non-striker, it touched the batter, and yes, it did ricochet from the non-striker's leg onto the stumps with the non-striker a meter outside the ground. But you're going to go not out on the appeal because the law wants there to be a touch by one of the fielders. And lastly, when a batter will not be out a run out, and I need to give you a scenario to explain to you how this theory works. I want you to visualize the following scenario. It's a spin bowler and the keeper standing up. Spin bowler delivers the ball. The bowler's in umpire calls no ball for the spinner's front foot not being behind the popping crease. The spinner delivers the ball. It's a nice loopy delivery. The striker's eyes lit up. Double steps out the crease to get to the pitch of the ball. Tries to hit the ball, miss the ball. Keeper gathers the ball behind the stumps, takes off the bails, and appeals to the strikers in umpire. Your answer, strikers in umpire, is going to be not out. Why? Firstly, you cannot be stumped off a no ball. You'll tell the keeper that. Then the keeper say, okay, I'm not appealing for stumping. I'm appealing for a run out. Then your answer to that question is also going to be also not out. Why? Because here, this is where this law comes in and gives immunity to the striker. As long as if it's a no ball, if a no ball was called, and the wicket was then fairly put down by the striker, the wicket was fairly put down by the wicket keeper, and the striker was not attempting a run, and if that is the case, the striker gets immunity from being run out. So striker will not be out stumped, and striker will not be out run out. So these are the three instances where either batter will not be out run out. The penultimate law that I'm covering is the stumped law. Let's look at an animation video.
Stumped. All batsmen fear being stumped, and all wicket-keepers dream of stumping batsmen. So let's be clear about the law. The only player who can stump a batsman is this fellow, the wicket-keeper. A stumping can take place provided that the ball is not a no ball. You can be stumped off a wide, however. Here, for example, the batsman has moved out of his or her ground to play the ball, but has missed it and has not attempted a run. The wicket is fairly put down by the wicket-keeper without the intervention of another fielder. When all these conditions are met, the batsman will find that he or she has indeed been stumped. It's also okay for the ball to rebound onto the stumps off any part of the wicket-keeper, including his or her protective equipment or helmet. If it is a no ball, the batsman will not be out-stumped and is also protected from being run out as long as he or she is not attempting a run. Don't be stumped about stumping. Get a copy of the Blue Book and study Law 39.
And lastly, Tom, before I hand back over to you, the timeout law. How does this law work? And again, this is according to the laws of cricket. There are playing conditions that do differ slightly in terms of the timing. But according to the laws of cricket, at the fall of a wicket or the retirement of a batter, the incoming batter needs to be ready, or the other batter needs to be able to receive the ball within 3 minutes of the dismissal or the retirement. And if this is not met and on appeal, incoming batter to be given out, timed out. Thomas, thank you so much. Handing back over to you.
Thank you very much, Abdullah. And thank you to all the candidates who have put answers into the chat box of our various scenarios and also asked questions on the presentation. So first I'm going to go and talk you through the quiz questions that we posed. First quiz question that was posed was to do with this scenario. I'm going to put the volume off and talk you through it. So the batter plays a shot that goes to long off, and the fielder coming around. As he slows down to try and meet the ball, the cap flies off his head and the ball trickles along and hits the cap that is on the floor. So the question here is this an instant of illegal fielding? If it were, 5 penalty runs, or was this accidental? And if it's accidental that the cap has landed on the floor, then if the ball hits it, then we play on. So we'll see in the replay that he has not willfully discarded his cap. The cap has flown off and the ball has hit the cap. But because the cap got there accidentally, it wasn't discarded and put down there willfully. That is not illegal fielding. Play on. The runs that were completed by the batters will count. No penalty runs to be awarded. Next scenario is Pakistan versus New Zealand. And once again, I'll put the volume off and I'll talk you through the scenario. Kane Williamson thrusts his pad at the ball. The ball misses the pad. The ball goes past the wicketkeeper. It hits the helmet behind the wicketkeeper. Alim Dar correctly signals 5 penalty runs awarded to the batting side. Note that the ball does not touch Kane Williamson's person, okay? He thrust his pad towards the ball, but it did not hit his pad, went past his pad, and it hit the helmet behind the wicketkeeper. And the ball becomes automatically dead when it hits the helmet placed behind the wicketkeeper. And 5 penalty runs are awarded to New Zealand. The ball does roll onto the boundary, but because it's dead, there will not be any more runs awarded to New Zealand. Okay, so only 5 penalty runs awarded to New Zealand. Now, while Abdullah was presenting, I saw that there were a couple of questions around this scenario, and I will answer them while we have this scenario at hand. So as I mentioned, this ball goes past Kane Williamson's pad. It does not hit Kane Williamson's pad. That is why we are able to award the 5 penalty runs to New Zealand when the ball hits the helmet placed behind the wicketkeeper. Now, what if that ball had hit Kane Williamson's pad? If the ball had hit Kane Williamson's pad and then went on to hit the helmet placed behind the wicketkeeper, would we have awarded 5 penalty runs? The answer is no, we would not have awarded 5 penalty runs. And the reason that we would not have awarded 5 penalty runs is that Kane Williamson in this scenario is not playing a shot, and he is also not trying to avoid injury. He is not taking evasive action. So if a striker is not playing a shot and is not taking evasive action, but the ball does hit his pad or any part of his person, except the gloves holding the bat, then if the ball goes on to hit the helmet placed behind the wicket keeper, yes, the ball will still automatically become dead, but because no shot was offered and because evasive action was not taken by the striker, we will disallow all runs to the batting side. So we will wait until they have attempted and completed a single, or we will wait until the ball crosses the boundary, or in this scenario, we will wait until the ball hits the helmet placed behind the wicket keeper, and then the ball will become dead. Or if it goes over the boundary, or if they complete the single, we will call and signal dead ball. We will not award 5 penalty runs because all runs to the batting side in the scenario where no shot has been offered, no evasive action has been taken, the ball has come off the pad or any part of the striker's person, and then gone on to hit the helmet behind the wicket keeper, we disallow all runs. No leg byes will be awarded and no other runs will be awarded. Penalty runs for the ball hitting the helmet behind the wicketkeeper will not be awarded. Other penalty runs, for example, if Kane Williamson had started running down the middle of the pitch and the team was on a first and final warning, if he had done that before the ball had hit the helmet, then we would award 5 penalty runs to the fielding side for that infringement. But the 5 penalty runs for the ball hitting the helmet will not be awarded if no shot was offered, if no evasive action was taken, and the ball has come off the pad and then hit the helmet behind the wicketkeeper. I hope that explains leg byes not to be awarded. Next scenario is this attempt at a catch. Was it a catch? Was it not a catch? Let's have a look, see, and I will talk you through it with the volume off. So Shea Hope hits a ball down to long on. Fielder comes around, initially juggles the ball, takes it on the second attempt, and then he rolls along the ground. And as he attempts to come up with the ball, we will see that the weight of his body leads to the ball squirting out of his left hand. So here he has caught the ball. Yes, he's in control of the ball, but is he in control of his movements yet? No, he's not in control of his movement when he loses control of the ball. Law tells us on display on the screen that the act of completing a catch shall start from the time when the ball first comes into contact with the fielder's person and shall end when a fielder obtains complete control over both the ball and his or her own movement. So the correct decision, which I think you all gave in the chat box for Quiz question 33.3 is not out. That concludes the quiz questions that we posed to you. Now we're going to go into the chat box for the questions that you have posed, and there are a number of questions to get through. I see all of you scenario gurus had your weird and wonderful scenarios ready for us today. Ansh asks, does a penalty time for a player continue to another match in the same series? Ansh, penalty time does go from one innings to the next in the same match and one day to the next in the same match. But penalty time does not carry over into another match. So the answer to your question is no. Penalty time does not carry over into another series, another match in the same series or in any other series. Next question is from Legasa or Legasa. Practicing parallel to the pitch, can it be done during change of innings? So Legasa, the two strips directly parallel to the match strip, those cannot be used for practice during the match at any time. Even before the match, they cannot be used for practice. Even after the day's play, if it's a more day cricket match that will resume the following day, no practice is allowed on the playing strip. No practice is allowed on the two strips next to the playing strip. If the grounds staff has prepared practice pitches, they have to be wider than these two strips that are parallel right next to, adjacent, I think is the best word to use. The two strips adjacent to the match pitch cannot be used at any time. Anywhere wider of those two strips that are adjacent to the match strip can be prepared and used for practice before the match and during the match, during intervals. Okay. A bowler cannot bowl a practice delivery during a match on those practice strips. A bowler cannot bowl any delivery parallel to the match strip. The practice deliveries that a bowler can bowl are to mid-off and to mid-on. So that is away from the strip and away from any strips parallel to the match strip. Abdullah, Liz Khassa has got another question about fielding the ball. What if while chasing the ball, the fielder takes his cap out and holds it with his left hand? So the fielder is holding his cap with his left hand, but he takes the catch with his right hand. Is that illegal fielding or is that play on? Abdullah?
Legasa, that is play on. Why? It's only legal fielding if that ball touches that cap. As long as the ball is not touching the cap, absolutely no issue. It will be play on. Over, Tom.
Thanks, Abdullah. Question from Negandra, referring to Law 27. What is the action to be taken if the wicketkeeper interferes with the striker's right to play at the ball? Abdullah?
The striker always has a right to play at the ball, even in guarding his or her own wicket. There is a but, and that but is striker is not allowed to prevent the catch from being taken. But to answer your question, if there is interference, you as the umpire need to intervene. And how do you intervene? By calling and signaling dead ball. If there was interference by any of the fielder, let's use example the A keeper, to the striker, you intervene and you need to call and signal dead ball. Over, Tom.
Thanks, Tula. Isanullah wants us to explain law 28.3.3, Isanula, that is exactly what I explained. If Kane Williamson, the ball that he padded up to, if the ball had flicked the pad and gone on to hit the protective helmet behind the wicketkeeper, leg byes would be disallowed, and the 5 penalty runs would also be disallowed because he did not attempt to play a shot, nor did he attempt to take evasive action. So disallow all runs to the batting side in that case. Mohammed Tuki has got a scenario. A bowler bowls a no ball. Sorry, a bowler bowls a ball that is hit through mid-wicket. The fielder fields the ball and throws it to the bowler's end. By this time, the bowler's cap has fallen from his head and the ball makes contact with the cap and goes through and breaks the wicket while the batter is still out of his ground. Is the batter out, run out? Mohammed, the cap has fallen accidentally off the head of the bowler, so play on. If the ball went on and dislodged the bails from the top of the stumps and the batter was out of his or her ground, then the batter is out, run out. As long as that cap was not taken off the head deliberately or willfully by the bowler, then if the ball hits that cap that accidentally fell off, no problem. The game continues and the run out can be affected. Abdullah, your friend Sandeep from Atlanta has got one hell of a scenario. I'm going to summarize it for everybody. Batter plays a shot, the ball lands in front of him or her. Nobody comes to field it, so they scramble through for a single, and still nobody has touched the ball. They run back for a second, and with the striker desperate to make good his ground, he accidentally kicks the ball to his own stumps before he lands inside his crease. So Abdullah, there's an appeal. Obviously, there'll be an appeal. Is the striker out? And if the striker is out, how is the striker out? And how many runs, if any, are scored by the batting side? Very rare and unlikely scenario, but let's help Sandeep to get this crazy scenario out of his head sorted. Are you still there, Abdullah? Have you frozen or have I frozen? Okay, it looks like Abdullah has frozen. And firstly, what I'm going to do is... Or was it me? Okay, no, was it me that was frozen?
No, it was me. It was me. I lost connectivity. I'm back.
Okay, can you give us an answer to Sandeep's weird and wonderful scenario?
Yes, Tom. As highly unlikely as that scenario is going to be, not impossible, but it meets all the criteria for the striker being out bowled. Ball put down the wicket. Yes, it happens on the second run, but that ball is still alive. The ball still took the wicket, put the wicket down. No one else touched the ball, and that is crucial. And yes, the ball put the wicket down, meets all the requirements for out bowled. Hence, the striker in this scenario is out bowled. Over, Tom.
And when a striker is out bowled, no runs will be scored by the batting side. Thanks, Dula. The next scenario is from Mohammed Tuki, and he asks if the ball had hit Kane Williamson's pad when he was padding up, would it have been 5 penalty runs? No, Mohammed. Because no shot is attempted, then leg byes are not to be awarded, and 5 penalty runs for the ball hitting the helmet behind the wicketkeeper will not be awarded. Yes, the ball will become dead, but no 5 penalty runs will be awarded. Okay. Moving swiftly along through the chat box. Well done to all of you who said not out for quiz question 33.3. Mohammed Tuki has got a question relating to Law 21, the no ball. In a limited overs match, there is a front foot no ball that's called by the bowlers and umpire. And the next delivery, Abdullah, is a free hit because it is a limited overs match. Now, that free hit, in that no ball, let me read it out. No ball is called by the umpire. The wicketkeeper fails to gather the ball and the batters are both right-handed. They cross for a bye. In the free hit, the fielding captain maintains the same field, and that free hit is called a wide, and another free hit will be called. Now for the second free hit, the captain wants to change the field. Or is there only one free hit? Sorry, I think I read this too fast.
It's only one free hit, but then they bowl a wide, and then obviously because of the wide, it will still stay a free hit. So he's just asking, can the field be? Is the captain allowed to change the field? Yes, no problem.
Yes, that's because the the batters crossed. Thanks, Abdullah. That strike has changed, even though it's two right-handers. As long as the strike changes, the field can be changed for a free hit. Isanullah asks, the batter has hit the ball twice to guard his wicket, and the ball now goes on to hit the helmet behind the wicket keeper that is placed there by the fielding side. What is the procedure, Abdullah? Will there be 5 penalty runs awarded to the batting side?
So, Ihsanullah, there are 5 instances where usually 95% of the time, if the ball, while still alive, hits the helmet that gets placed behind the keeper, the ball will then automatically becomes dead, and we will then give 5 penalty runs to the batting side. That's about 95% of the time. But there are 5 instances where if the ball should hit the helmet that was placed behind the keeper, that 5 penalty runs will not be given to the batting side. And this is one of those instances where, yes, the batter is allowed to legally protect his or her wicket, which looked like in your question, the batter did legally protect the wicket. And now after legally hitting the ball a second time, now the ball goes on and hit the helmet that was placed behind the keeper. So the ball will automatically becomes dead as soon as it hits the helmet, but usually that 5 penalty runs that we give when the ball hits the helmet, in this instance, and this is one of 5, where you will not be given, you will not give the batting side those 5 penalty runs. So those 5 penalty runs will not be given if these runs should not be allowed. So if they did try to run and they went for a single, you need to disallow all runs. You need to send batters back to the original ends and not allow the 5 penalty runs. Over, Tom.
Thanks, Tulan. Next question is from Mohammed Tuki. He likes his free hits. In a limited overs match, there's a front foot no ball called by the bowlers and umpire. The batters run, and while the fielding captain is changing the field for the free hit, it rains for 30 minutes. After the play resumes, how can we manage the scenario? Mohammed, I'm not sure what you're asking, how we should manage the scenario. The free hit still remains. If we are now in a different power play, the free hit still remains and the field can be changed, Abdullah, because there was a single taken. Do we need to abide by the fielding restrictions of the power play that we are now in, or do we need to abide by the power play restrictions that we were in before the rain interruption?
In before the rain interruption for that one ball only, that free hit ball only. After that ball, we go to the current power play restrictions.
Thank you very much, Abdullah. I hope that answers the question there, Mohammed. William says, when taking off for a quick single, in trying to avoid being hit by the ball, the striker's bat goes against the wicket. Is that out, hit, wicket? Sounds like a very unlikely scenario, Abdullah, but please take us through it.
Yeah, so one of the points for you not to be given out hit wicket, if you try to avoid injury at any time, looks like this is one of those instances. So the answer to that appeal is not out.
Thanks, Tula. Another appeal coming your way. A batter plays a shot and misses the ball. And in his bat swing, he loses his bat into the air and the bat lands on the wickets and the bails fall off. Is the batter out, hit wicket, or has he completed receiving the delivery? So he is not out, hit wicket. Abdullah?
If I try to visualize this scenario, batter has definitely not completed the shot, still in that shot. And with the bat putting the bails down, I will give this batter out, hit wicket.
I agree with you, Abdullah. Usually the bat flies out of a striker's hand in the course of the shot being played. Happy. Next scenario is from Kushal. The batter plays a ball, attempts a run, goes for second. In the entire process, no fielder touches the ball. That means the ball is still alive. And if the batter's bat pushes the ball into his stumps and the ball falls, it is out bowled. Kushal, very similar scenario to that of Sandeep's, where the batter coming back for his second run kicked the ball into the stumps. This time it's the bat that hits the stumps of the striker's end. Because there's been no intervention from any other player on the field, the striker will be out bowled. Next scenario is from Mohammed Tuki. A batter strikes the ball into the air and the ball is going for boundary 6. And then he lifts his bat back and breaks the wicket. Is he out, hit wicket, or is he not out? Abdullah, I guess we need to decide whether the shot was complete or not.
That's then we need to see a video of the scenario to see whether the shot is completed or not. So so Mohammed, you've you came up with this scenario, so you've probably visualized it. So you need to ask yourself the question: is the shot completed? Because if the shot is completed, window period for hit wicket is closed, and even if they put it down after that, it will be not out hit wicket. If the shot is not completed, if this is still part of the shot that the striker was playing, striker then to be given out hit wicket. Over, Tom.
Thanks, Tula. Mohammed asks, which modes of dismissals could be withdrawn by the captain of the fielding side? So they've appealed, umpire has given the batter out, and now which mode of dismissals can the fielding captain withdraw the appeal? Abdullah?
The laws don't specify and tells you can only withdraw certain modes of dismissals. It technically allows you to withdraw any modes, but I mean captains don't usually withdraw bold appeals. There must be a good reason why a captain would want to withdraw a bold a bold appeal. Yeah, so to answer the question, there's no specific where it says in the law when it comes to withdrawing of the appeals, you can only withdraw certain modes. But yeah, I've never seen, I don't know if you've seen a bold withdrawn, Tom.
No, Abdullah, I've never seen a bold appeal being withdrawn. And in fact, a lot of the times when a striker's out bowled, they celebrate, they don't really appeal. Would be very strange to see. It's usually sorry, Abdullah, it's usually the controversial appeals for obstructing the field that might be withdrawn, or a man-cad appeal that might be withdrawn. I've never seen any other appeal withdrawn.
Yeah, me too. And also, I mean, there is a condition that the law do put in. So yes, the captain is allowed to withdraw an appeal, but that captain needs to get the permission of the umpire in whose jurisdiction it falls. So they do put that condition. So yes, they don't put which mode, but there is that condition. So I mean, if a batter is bowled and a captain tells me, no, I'm withdrawing the appeal, the law actually puts the power in my hand. I can say, no, sorry, so sorry, Captain. I'm not going to allow this, and I'm by my rights. I mean, if you think of a scenario where, let's say, it's a slow batter batting at the moment, and it's close to the end of a T20 innings, and the captain don't want this batter to be dismissed. Captain said, no, I'm withdrawing my bold appeal. I would say, no, Captain. I'm not giving you permission. This batter's out bowled, so you can't withdraw the appeal. I'm just going on what the law say. It leaves it up in the umpire's hand. So if it's tactically like this, I would say no. But usually you go for those controversial ones, the man-cats, and the obstructing the fields. That's where it usually happens. Over, Tom.
Thanks, Tula. Next question is from William. For a stumping, is it a no ball if the wicketkeeper catches the ball before it passes the striker's stumps? Abdullah?
Sorry, Tom, what was the question?
Is it a no ball if the wicketkeeper catches the ball before the ball passes the stumps of the striker?
I've just lost my chat, so I'm not able to see the questions. That's why I ask you just to repeat it. So William, so when it comes to the keeper, the law wants, as soon as the ball comes into play, the law wants the keeper to remain, and the word the law uses, wholly behind the wicket at all times from the moment the bowler takes his or her first step. So yes, that hands of that keeper needs to always stay behind the stumps. So the keeper needs to take the ball behind the stumps and then take off the bails to get a stumping done. If the keeper's hands do come in front of the stumps before the ball has passed the stumps, the striker's end umpire needs to call and signal no ball. There are 3 exceptions. If the ball touches the the striker, a bat, or any part of the person, then the keeper can come in front of the stumps. Soon as the striker touches it, bat or person, then they can come in front of the stumps. If the striker attempts a run, no issue. Then the keeper can come in front of the stumps. Tom, I can't think of the third one now. Bat person attempting a run.
And if the ball passes
as soon as the ball passes the stumps, then the keeper can come in front of the stumps. So those are the three exceptions. Other than that, keeper's hands needs to stay behind the stumps. William, as soon as it comes in front of the stumps, strikers in umpire needs to call and signal no ball. Over, Tom.
Perfect. Thanks, Tula. In regard to the free hit questions, if no runs are taken, are the close-in fielders allowed to move all the way back to the 30-yard circle for the free hit? Abdullah, you always hear captains whenever there's a free hit and the field is not allowed to change, they always tell their fielders to move back onto the circle. Yeah. So do we allow some fielders to move back onto the circle? Do we allow close-in fielders, like a short cover fielder, to move back to the 30-yard circle?
So, Tom, we will allow those cover mid-off fielders, point fielders, yes, we'll allow them to go onto the circle, but your silly point, your short leg fielders, we will not allow them, because the playing condition states you're not allowed to on a free hit, change the fielders changing position. That is not allowed. So if you're going to allow a short leg fielder, let's say silly point fielder, now to move from silly point to cover on the circle, that is changing that fielder's position. That is not allowed. If, let's say, a short leg fielder feels that on the free hit, I'm standing so close to the batter's now going to take a wild swing at the ball, I might be in danger here. If they feel that anytime feels in danger of getting hurt, for safety reasons, we'll allow that fielder to go off the field for that one ball, if the fielder is concerned about the safety. I'm now referring to the short leg fielder and for that free hit. So safety concerns, we'll allow that fielder, but that fielder now needs to go off the field for that one ball, and after the free hit, that fielder can come back in. But otherwise, that fielder needs to stay short leg, needs to stay silly point. Over, Tom.
Thanks, Tula. Neville asks as well, for the boundary 6 and hit wicket scenario that we went over earlier, if the boundary is scored, the ball becomes dead. So will the hit wicket be considered after the boundary 6 has been scored? So Neville, in the scenario, we need to check if the wicket was put down before the ball went over the boundary or after the ball went over the boundary. If the wicket was put down after the ball has already crossed the boundary, then you're quite right. The ball would be dead and boundary 6 would be scored, and we wouldn't even need to judge whether or not the striker is out hit wicket. But I imagine that the scenario that was pictured, the striker put the wicket down before the ball went over the boundary. So then we would have to decide, was the wicket put down by a shot still being played, or was the shot completed before the bat put the wicket down? So we would only need to make a judgment call on that if the wicket was put down before the ball crossed the boundary. I hope that answers your question, Neville. There are no more questions or comments in the chat box. I am now going to ask Rifat to unmute his microphone. He's been patiently waiting with his hand up in the meeting room. Rifat, please unmute your microphone. The floor is yours. Rifat, are you still with us, or did you fall asleep through those hundreds of scenarios that we had to get through? If you are still with us, please unmute your microphone and the floor is yours.
Hello.
Yes, Rifat. Welcome back. I hope we didn't wake you up from your nap.
Watching Bangladesh versus Hong Kong Asia Cup match and also hearing the lecture. I have a question and a clarification. Let's first clarification on that an incident was happened in the last Bangladesh versus Netherlands T20 series. One of the women umpire, Sathira Jagajesi, made the decision and he made this history for the first time in umpiring the men's cricket. Jesse gives give a decision run out on trivia umpire in the scenario when the batter short of his popping crease and when the bells dislodged, the LED light was on, but when the LED bells were completely dislodged, then the batter's bat in the popping crease. But short when the bells are on, LED lights are on, that time the bat was short of the crease, and Jesse give the out the batsman, and for this decision he is criticized many of the in Bangladesh, and I want to know the exact use of LED light or bells. What was the rules to give the out a batsman while LED light on or off? Because it's very tough to give the decision when the lights are on. Is that any particular rules to give the out when LED light or stuff's on, light on?
Okay, thanks for the scenario, Rifat. If I could please ask you to send me that scenario on WhatsApp, and then we can maybe have a look at it at our next lecture. But I'm going to hand over to Abdullah. He's going to talk us through the LED lights. When do they light up? And do we as TV umpires go only with the LED lights lighting up? Does that mean the wicket has been fairly put down as soon as the LED lights light up of the stumps and the bails?
So Rifat, we get guided by the playing conditions when it comes to LED lighting. In conversation with the creators of the LED wickets, and the ICC has put guidelines in place how to interpret when the wicket is put down when it comes to LED lightings. And the guidance that the ICC gave us is as follows. Our judgment is we need to look at when the lights go on. That is when we need to look at where the batter was when the lights, when the stumps are illuminated or the bails are illuminated. And also, but there is a provision. You look at the lights, yes, but then the bails should be on the floor, because we can have instances where the ball touch the stumps, the bails jump up, the lights goes on, but the bails falls back on. So in those instances, the wicket is not put down. So the playing condition states you look at the lights, And that is where the judgment call that you need to make is where the batter is when the lights go on. But you still then also need to look at whether the wicket was, whether the bells were dislodged. Let's say bells are on the floor. If bells are on the floor, you look at the light and where the batter was. So just listening to your scenario, I didn't see it. And assuming that the bells were on the floor, the TV umpire looked at the lights and the batter was short when the lights went on. That's why correctly the batter was given out run out, because they applied the playing conditions for LED lighting. Just to further elaborate on how when the lights on the stump will go on. So this is how it works. The lights on the stump will only go on if the bails are completely, one or both bails are completely removed from the top of the stumps. So if you do see the stump light goes on, you then know that the bails are at least one bail is out of the groove. But you need to look further to see whether the bells are on the floor, because in those instances where the bell goes up, yes, it is dislodged, the stump will then go on, but if it falls back on, then that wicket is not dislodged. And that is, in a nutshell, how the LED lighting works, and how we need to interpret the dismissals. And as I said to you, without seeing it, while just listening to you, I think the correct decision was made by the TV umpire. Over, Tom.
Excellent explanation. Thanks, Tula. Rifat, another clarity?
Another question. Another question about hit wicket. I can remember a scenario when I was in younger age. South Africa takes on Pakistan, and so far I remember the Inzamam ul Haq, the Pakistan captain, hit a six, a spin bowling against spin bowling, and when Inzamam hit the ball was gone past over the boundary for six. But in that time, when Inzamam was eyeing on the ball, and he's break down his wicket by his leg. I can remember that time the ball was the ball was out of the ground for six, and umpire managed it that he will give 6 runs and as well as hit wicket. And that it's maybe 2006, 7, 8, or 9 in the scenario. Is that decision was correct?
6 and out. That's an interesting one, Rifat. Again, I think we would need to see that scenario to give you a judgment as per the laws as they stand now. I do believe hit wicket is one of those laws, Abdullah, that has evolved over the years in the law book. So maybe in 2006, when that happened, then the law meant that is Inzamam ul Haq, based on what happened.
So I can clearly that the ball was given 6 and also the given hit wicket, both. I will find the video and I will give you that the videos if I find it. But
that will be a very interesting one to discuss. Thanks, Rifat. As I say, I don't know the law on hit wicket in 2006, but I can tell you in this day and age, it would either be boundary 6 or it would be out hit wicket. It would not be 6 and out. Abdullah, please confirm as per the law as it stands today.
Yeah, you can't have both, and usually if the ball goes for 6, I would say 99% of the time the shot would be done already. Can't see the shot still being played, and then the ball goes. The ball is already over the boundary. So yeah, let's wait for the video. Let's have a look at it, and then we can comment. Over, Tom.
Okay, Tom, thank you. I am so frustrated about myself because Tom, I have passed level 1, and I last week I went to the BCB uh, and told them I want to umpiring in BCB under BCB third division qualifying match or any school level match, but they denied me. They told me that you can come talk with later. I'm so frustrating for this. What can I do now? I don't know, but I will trying to give to umpiring. I will try my best level best. What can I do now?
Rifat, unfortunately, we have no say in terms of the progression of umpires in Bangladesh. All I can suggest to you is to keep working hard, keep umpiring as many matches as you can at whatever level that you can, and hopefully someday Bangladesh Cricket Board will recognize your quality, your qualifications, and your experience, and will promote you to the next level so that you can keep developing as an umpire. Stick with us. We'll take you places. You never know where you'll end up. Okay, keep going, my friend.
Thank you, Tom.
Good. Okay, now we've got Isanullah. Please unmute your microphone. The floor is yours, sir.
Hi to Tom and hi to Abdullah. My question is about yesterday match between India and UAE. I think there was a scenario when Shubman Dube was bowling and a towel fall from his trouser during his run-up. When he delivered the ball to the UAE batsman, he then says that I was disturbed by the trouser. I was disturbed by the towel which was fall from the trouser of the bowler. In the meantime, the wicket keeper hit the wicket and appealed for a stumping also. In this time, the umpire referred the decision to the TV umpire. When they checked in the TV umpire, there was a snake also to the wicket keeper. There was a snake, and they gave the batsman out. But the Indian captain Surya Kumar Yadav withdrew the appeal and returned the batsman into the crease. So, in my point of view, the on-field umpire should have called dead ball at the first instance when the towel fall from the trouser of the bowler. What is your answer, please?
So Isanullah, when a towel falls from a bowler's back and lands on the floor, the umpire will not always see that towel falling. So it is up to the batter, realizing that the towel has fallen, to move away from his position in front of the stumps and not play at the delivery. And that way, then the umpire will know that the striker was distracted and will call and signal dead ball. They will find out the reason for the batters getting distracted, and because it was a good reason, no problem. That ball will need to be rebowled. So from the sounds of your scenario, I didn't see it. Maybe that towel fell quite late after the ball had been delivered, and so the batter still played at the shot because it was too late for him to withdraw from the shot. So that is a tricky one when the towel falls very late. But if there is evidence that the towel fell any time just before the bowler bowled or up until the time when the striker played at the shot, then the umpire can consider that, yes, the striker was distracted. Even though they did not withdraw from the shot, the mere fact that the towel fell during the striker's attempt to play at the shot, then yes, dead ball should be the correct call in that scenario. It would again be great for us, Isanula, if you could send us that video. We don't have any way to view Asia Cup matches. I don't think they are on Super Sport this year. So it would be great for those of you who are able to get clips of matches from the Asia Cup to provide them with us, so that when we come to a lecture, we can play those videos and talk through them. It's very difficult for us to give you a thorough opinion of a scenario that is only being described to us. It's much better, much easier if we can see the scenario, then we can give you our expert opinion based on what we see and based on ICC interpretations of playing conditions and laws. I hope that answers your question, Isamola.
Tom, to be super honest, I didn't see the video. One of my friends told me, but also I read the text in the Kenpo. Here is written thus: Dube to Junaid Siddiqui no runs. What happened here? Being into the track and Lexington Siddiqui swings for the hills and misses, and then argues that his concentration was put up by the rock falling up Dube's trouser. During that entire sequence, Samson headers the ball and hit the stumps. And we now go upstairs to check for the stumping. And guess what? Siddiqui has been caught napping. Oh dear, this is not a good luck for Siddiqui, and he will not want to watch this replay. He was arguing about what had happened down the other end and forgot to regain his ground. An elementary error. And India have now withdrawn their appeal, think it might have been down to Siddiqui speaking about the rock that fell up Dube's browser in India were happy to accept that explanation. It was written on the Rikenko.
Thanks for that, Isanula.
So,
and yes, Sandeep, go ahead.
I just wanted to add to that, the rag that has been fall. I watched this match live, and the rag has fallen way behind the umpire even. So the rag did not follow when the Dube was in delivery stride. In my opinion, I thought batter actually took an advantage of that distraction. It had happened, I think, three steps even before when the Dube comes the delivery stride. And that's why umpire sent that, because umpire did not notice what had happened. That's why umpire sent that to the third umpire. Decision was given, review was taken, blah, blah, blah. But then ultimately, after the decision been displayed on the big screen, Surya Kumar Yadav upheld the appeal of distraction made by the batter and withdrew the appeal. That's the whole story, I believe.
Okay, great. Thank you. Neville has sent me that video on WhatsApp, so I'll play it for everyone. Just bear with me while I share my screen. Wish I could I wish I could enlarge it so that it fills the entire screen. Let's see if double clicking helps. So I think if you look at, if I'm going to start it from the start, if you look at the striker, he misses the shot and immediately he points to the towel. So for me, yes, he's played the shot, fair enough. He didn't think to back away and not play the shot, but he immediately points to the towel. So he has been distracted. And for me already, as a bowler's end umpire, I would, this is a distraction. I would call and signal dead ball. And then I would find out why the striker is pointing. I would have turned to look and I would have seen the towel. and to prevent anything from happening after the pointing, I think calling and signaling dead ball early would have been a good call. Obviously, for me, it's easy to say it now because I kind of know what the scenario, how it unfolded. But yes, I think, thankfully, India, if we play on, the wicket keeper stumped the striker. Strikers and umpire sent it upstairs, and he was out of his crease. But thankfully, Surya Kumar Yadav, after listening to the plea of the striker and talking to the umpire, withdrew his appeal. So a great bit of sportsmanship there, and the spirit of cricket trumped over the laws of cricket here. Abdullah, your opinion on that scenario, please? Were you able to see it?
Yeah, we're able to see it. Yeah, so Tom, we actually get guided by the ICC on this via the ICC Almanac document. So ICC is quite clear when it comes to these incidences where the towel falls. You need to look whether the batter was distracted. If yes, we need to go dead ball. But it needs to, and in your opinion, the batter needs to be genuinely distracted by the towel falling. You cannot have a batter. Sometimes they would try to manipulate the situation by using it as an excuse, not to be dismissed. So it's your judgment call. You need to look at the situation and then ask yourself, was the batter distracted by the towel moving, by the towel falling? If in your opinion, yes, you can go dead ball. If you don't think the batter was distracted, the batter is just taking a chance, trying to manipulate the situation here, you can then go, sorry batter, you're taking a chance here, you were not distracted. That dismissal will then count. So it is a judgment call. It's a call that the umpire needs to make, and I'm just given the criteria that you need to take into account in making that judgment call. Over, Tom.
Thank you very much, Abdullah, and thank you to Neville for providing the link for that video. Prince would like to know about the video sent on WhatsApp where a bowler threw the ball back and it hit the batter. Okay, so Prince, I will put that as a make the call video in the coming weeks. So we will discuss it for Make the Call live on the first Monday of October. Mohammed Tuki wants to know, was the stumping appeal withdrawn? Yes, it was, Mohammed. As Abdullah mentioned, the law doesn't specify which modes of dismissals can be withdrawn and which modes of dismissals cannot be withdrawn. So we assume that all modes of dismissals can be withdrawn as long as the umpire whose jurisdiction the decision fell agrees to withdraw the appeal. So yes, Surya Ma could have asked for the stumped appeal to be withdrawn, and it was withdrawn by the umpires. So the spirit of cricket prevailed there over the laws of cricket. Ladies and gents, I do not see any more questions in the chat box. I do not see any more hands in the meeting room. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you all for your attendance and your interaction. We will resume our course on Monday, the 11th of September, same time. Sorry, not the 11th of September. It will be the 15th of September. Same time, same place, same Microsoft Teams meeting link. Have a great weekend when it comes. We'll see you next week. Thank you and goodbye.